Hey guys, Taki here. For any of you out there that want a huge screen in your gaming handheld, I have one that I think fits the bill. This is the ONEXPLAYER 2, and it's a handheld that I've been testing for about a week now. This video is going to be a first look with a mix of my first impressions on using this thing, as well as some PC game and emulation performance tests. You can find a full list of the specs for the model that I'm testing in this video under the subscribe button. Beyond the bigger screen, one of the big marketing features of this is that it comes with controllers that can be removed like Joy-Cons. This is something that we haven't seen many other companies attempt, but it can be a cool added bonus when you have a market that's big enough to warrant the creation of cool third-party controllers like the Switch and the Switch OLED. We probably won't see something like that in this niche, but it's still cool to see it in this guy. The OXP2 is a big handheld, and the Steam Deck is the closest thing to it in size. One has a 7-inch 800p screen, and the other has an 8.4-inch 1600p screen. Before I put them together like this, I thought the OXP2 was much bigger than the deck, but it turns out that that is not the case. It is bigger than the deck, but not as much as I thought while using it. Given that this is a big handheld, I want to start by talking about ergonomics. The original OXP wasn't the best handheld when it comes to ergonomics. At the time it entered the market, there wasn't really much in the way of competition, but thankfully that's changed in a big way. This guy is a huge improvement over the original with a bigger controller area, bigger shoulder buttons, off-axis input buttons, and a large ergonomic grip on the back. There are a few other improvements that aren't as easy to notice, but I like to see how much things are improving in a short period of time. Let's quickly go over the hardware aspects of this. As you can see, we have a main screen module in the middle with removable controllers. Right now, I have a USB keyboard connected just to make this video easier to make, and it's plugged into one of the 3 USB ports on this. Throughout this device, they've got hardcore gamers written in a few places. I'm not really a big fan of that. I think it looks a little gaudy, and I don't really even like the orange and black accents. I didn't like it on the original either. I think the white version of this device is a bit better because it's less in your face, and it can reject fingerprints and smudges better than this one can. But anyway, we have a power button here on the side with a set of volume buttons. These actually don't work right now. If I press them, you can see that they do other actions like call up the keyboard. So that's a bug that they know about. There's also a button that's labeled turbo. This doesn't actually do any turbo functionality. It just opens up a menu that we'll talk about later. To the side of that, you have a headphone jack, a Type-C port, a full-size USB port, and an SD card reader. I've seen a lot of people that were complaining about this being next to the exhaust, and this probably isn't the best location for any of these things to be at. Kind of weird that they didn't go in a different location, but even when I have my dongle on the top here, I haven't noticed any issues. There's nothing really to mention on the bottom. We have pogo connectors for a keyboard, along with a USB port that's off-center, and we have a set of speakers. One of the marketing features of this device is that it can transform in the same way that a Switch can. This is what it looks like with the controllers removed. This is not the first time that this company has done a product like this where the main unit has detachable controllers, but this is the first time where gaming was the main focus of the product. These controllers are pretty big, and they have a few things that are good about them, as well as a few things that could be a bit better. Before I started working on this video, the company said that they were improving the controllers, but they didn't tell me in what way they're going to improve them. So usually for products like this, if I find some flaws or issues while I'm testing out an early prototype, a company will say like, we're aware of X, Y, or Z, so either don't mention them or you can mention them, but you have to mention that we're already fixing them. This company told me that these controllers are being improved along with a bunch of other stuff, but they didn't tell me in what way. So I don't know if anything that I would talk about or find as a shortcoming would be something that's going to be fixed. So I'm just going to put some of my general ideas out there, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this because it's kind of ridiculous to just expect that you can have editorial control over a video that is not sponsored. Some people might agree to that to protect a good source of content, but I'm not cool with that, and it's super shady. You'll notice that these guys have the same hardcore gamers branding and random lines as the main unit. This controller seems to use a smaller Alps joystick like the one in the Switch, but they said that it has Hall functionality, and it also has an LED light around it. Besides this, we have the D-pad, a guide button, and a select button at the top. There's a small boomerang LED light at the bottom that is orange, and this can be disabled if you want. The side rail is not similar to what you'd see on a Switch because it's powered by these pogo pins. There's not really anything to write home about when it comes to the shoulder buttons. They are not great, but they work. One of the good things about these controllers is that they have a very nice grip on them. I can get a strong grip on this handle while I'm using this device, and it feels good in the hand. I don't know if this will come as a shock to you, but these do not work wirelessly at all. If you want to use these while they're not connected, you actually need an attachment to be able to use these, and for whatever reason, the company didn't have enough attachments for me to use one in this video. I don't know why they made so few of them, especially when they're sending out review units of this thing for promotion, and this is one of the main aspects that differentiates their product from all of the other 6800U handhelds that are out there. So in its current state, there's no real way for me to use this without holding the entire thing in my hands unless I use a secondary controller. I am going to do that in this video just to make filming easier, but it's kind of pointless when I could almost get the same experience with a laptop and a bigger screen. It's kind of a moot point because this thing can't be used like this anyways, but these controllers feel a little strange due to how light they are, given that there is no battery inside them. It just feels like they should be heavier than they are, and I hope the attachment has some heft to it to make these feel like a normal console controller. I didn't ask if I was allowed to take these apart, but I did because I wanted to verify that there was no battery inside. As you can see, we just have the main PCB along with the pogo connectors. The analog mechanism that they're using for R2 and L2 is not my favorite because it has friction issues, but that might be something that they're going to improve. They also have a circular rumble motor on the side here. I don't know the specs for this guy, but it looks similar to the ones used in some Linux handhelds. It's close to the edge of the grip and it feels good in the hand. This controller section is kind of getting away from me, so I'm going to breeze through some of my final points. Both of these controllers use conductive rubber, and the ABXY buttons feel good to use, and they are a decent size. The D-pad also uses conductive rubber, and it feels close to the Steam Deck, even right down to the concave surface, but this thing doesn't have any pivot ability right now. If you press down in the center, you can't really pivot with this. Again, I don't know if this is something that's going to be fixed because they didn't give me any specifics, but here it is. The D-pad is good for everything that doesn't require you to be able to pivot, and maybe we're just splitting hairs at this point because even the main Switch controllers can't pivot. On the back of the ONEXPLAYER, there's a fan intake here, and the exhaust goes out from the top. There is also an air vent over the battery, but this feels like this was done more for style than anything else. There's not really anything else worth mentioning here, except that this comes with a kickstand that works well. I mean, it would probably work a bit better if the controllers worked wirelessly, or if I had the attachment, but it is what it is. The surface of this doesn't reject fingerprints well, and this is something that I knew from the first ONEXPLAYER model. That's why if it were my money, I would get the white shell because it's going to be far superior in this regard. You can see that this shell does have a lot of markings on here, and even if I, wipe it, it's really hard to get rid of them, so I'm not gonna bother with that. That's kind of just par for the course with this black shell because it doesn't reject fingerprints very well at all. That's also the reason why I was happy to see that they went with a white shell this time around. I want to start going over the PC performance of this, but we need to talk about how you go about changing the TDP using the default software. If you press the turbo button at the top, you're going to open up a floating control panel. This has the same awesome black and orange color scheme going on, but it does have some useful settings that you would use. As you can see, I have this set to 15 watt TDP right now, but we can increase this to 28 watt. You can customize the GPU frequency, which is more useful in emulators, and you can customize the CPU clocks. I like that they gave us custom fan control out of the box, and it works as you would expect. You can leave this on automatic, or you can change the fan speed from 30% up to 100%. But yeah, this is just a stripped down experience to what you'd see in Aya devices. It's nowhere as good as what's offered on Aya, but it is better than what you'd get out of the box with other popular products. For these PC tests, I plan to do most of my tests at 15 watt TDP, but I end up having to go higher than that in some of the games that I was benchmarking. Before we look at those games, I have a cool thing that I want to show. So here we are in Elden Ring, and I have the resolution set to 800p. We are at 28 watt TDP with the graphics set to low. You can see the game isn't quite at 60 FPS with these settings, and it's not really worth trying to go above 28 watts in this game. After bumping the graphics to high, we are now floating in the 40s, which is what I wanted to see for this test. This isn't enabled by default, but I found this panel can have a refresh rate of 25 to 60 Hz. If I go into the advanced display settings, you can see that I've already added a 40 Hz option to the drop-down list. I'm going to select the 40 Hz option and load the game back up. Here we are back in the game, and I've changed the graphics to medium. The game is VSync to the display refresh rate, and everything is super smooth and looks great. This isn't an advertised feature of this panel or this handheld, but it is a cool added benefit that not a lot of other handhelds can take advantage of. Anyway, let's look at the gaming performance of this thing. Here's Final Fantasy VII Remake.
This won't take long.
Next up, we have God of War.
So Odin gouged out his own eye. because of mushrooms you gave him?
Aye. Can't say for sure what he saw that led him to try.
Continuing on with our old PlayStation exclusives, here's Horizon Zero Dawn.
You're not going to make any shards by standing out here.
We're now going to move over to emulation performance, but I did want to state that I do have some battery life breakdowns at 28 watt TDP for the end of this video. Let's kick things off with GameCube and Wii using the Dolphin emulator. This is one of the few areas where we can take advantage of our higher native resolution, but I kept these games at 1080p. Our next system is Wii U with the CMU emulator. I cranked the TDP up high for this section to make it easier for filming, but you could get by with a lower TDP for these games. Now let's move over to PlayStation 2 with the PC SX2 emulator. This processor also does a great job with PS3. Here's PS3 emulation with the RPCS3 emulator.
What's with those eyes? And I'm starting with you, Ichigo. It's the ultimate feud. Your advance and my will. I am the king. Damn. It's over, Ichigo. I'm not giving up. I didn't ask anyone if I was allowed to open this up on camera, but this is what it looks like inside. I wanted to look at the cooling solution, and I want to see how difficult it was to swap out the SSD. After getting it open, I would say this is not really that difficult to open. It was a bit more difficult than it needed to be because they ended up gluing some of this prototype shell in place. In terms of screws, we have 6 screws in this back plate, and then you need to pry off the top and the bottom rails to get at the screws underneath those. Then you also have the screws on the side rails that need to be removed before the back shell will come free. Once inside, we can see dual copper pipes attached to a radiator fin. This guy does a decent job at moving air. It's not the best cooling system in a 6800U handheld, but it seems to be much better than the cooling system that was used in the original ONEXPLAYER. After you remove the fan and the metal shield, you gain access to the SSD. All in all, not that bad to service. The industrial design is pretty straightforward in this compared to other One Netbook products that I own. You essentially have the inside broken up into 2 parts that feel balanced. The huge battery is over here and takes up half the space, and that's why our I/O is where it is. Those ports probably could be placed in another location, but we'd probably lose about 10 to 15% of our battery. Speaking of battery life, I went ahead and did some standard tests for this device at 15 watt TDP and 28 watt TDP. Unlike other tests that I've done in the past where I would use the dipstick method to calculate battery life, I did full battery drains and collected the data throughout the test on this device. I also tested the recharge time of this guy, so we have that data as well. When it comes to the 15 watt TDP test, I got 2 hours and 16 minutes of battery life at full brightness. Part of the reason why I don't do the dipstick test on these handhelds is that the listed charge drain is so unreliable. During this test, our charge drain went from 25.83 watts to well over 30 watts. The GBD Win 4 held out for an hour and 48 minutes in this same test. When it comes to the 28 watt TDP test, I got an hour and 29 minutes minutes of battery life, but this is not the full picture. I've never seen this happen on another AMD system before, but the system manually changed the TDP back to 15 watt once it got to 15% battery life, and I could not find a single option in the power profile that caused it. What's more, the system placed a manual TDP cap of 20 watts that I was not even able to override with private AMD engineering software. Because of that, I would estimate the real battery life to be around 1 hour and 15 minutes or so. The GBD Win 4 held out for 1 hour and 2 minutes in this same test. That leaves us with the recharge time, and I got an average of over 2 hours in my test. This time increased whenever I let the battery cut out after 0%. The Win 4 took a bit more time than this on average to recharge. That leaves us with the price, and this is one of the more expensive 6800U handhelds that are out there today. The cheapest SKU that they have right now is just under $1,000, so this isn't going to be for everyone, but it does have some features that might be worth it to some people. I haven't benchmarked it, but the screen is good with accurate colors, and the ergonomics are way better than they were in the original OXP. But that's going to be it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions about this guy, and I'll try my best to answer them. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll catch you here next time with another one. Happy gaming, everyone.